The Working on Fire program turns 19 this month. It is one of government's most successful extended public works programs, which creates jobs for thousands of young people from disadvantaged communities. For more on this, we are joined by Managing Director at Working on Fire, Trevor Abrahams. Mr. Abrahams, thank you for joining us this afternoon. 19 years of Working on Fire. What have been your greatest achievements so far?
Good afternoon, and thanks to having us on. We are celebrating 19 years of amazing stories. We've exceeded expectations in all dimensions in terms of what the program's intended to do. Obviously, we've created jobs for the unemployed youth. Some 15,000 young people have gone through the program during this period. We've also obviously delivered the service of firefighting and preventative work, fire awareness training and rehabilitation, and even applied research as integrated fire management calls us to do. But I think the most successful element of our work has been the extent to which we have developed these young people into competent firefighters, and then to move on even to, in fact, join the private sector, join the state conservation agencies in full-time jobs out abroad. Even within the Working on Fire program, 60% of our management are in fact our former firefighters. So it's a major transformational success story. It's something the government introduced in 2003. It's been implemented by a private company, the Kishuga Group of Companies, and it has a success story in many dimensions.
A little later on, I just want us to unpack just the impact that the program has had on these young firefighters. But what I'm interested in knowing is, on average, how many fires have you put out with Working on Fire each year, and how do you do this?
We've actually attended to roughly 2,500 fires per year across the country. Right now, as we stand in September, we've attended 274 fires just for September alone. The previous month it was 470 fires. So it's a significant amount of fire spread across all our fire pro regions in the country. We have two broad fire seasons, one which is summer, which is predominantly the Western Cape and parts of the Eastern Cape, the summer area, and then the winter is the rest of the country, and that's where we are at the moment. We're actually entering into the peak season as it heats up now after the cold spell, and all the tinder there is waiting to be burnt.
I can imagine, and I mean, we also know that the impact of climate change on fires is one extraordinary one. What role do you as an organization play with regards to climate change?
Well, I just recently returned from an international conference where we presented at the International Association of Wildfires in Pasadena, California. And the theme of that meeting, which was a huge international, was climate change and wildfires. And all the research is in fact indicating to us that we are going into an era of worsening wildfires. And the UN has published a report that says, by 2030 we'll have a 14% increase. By 2050, a 30% increase. By the end of this decade, a 50% increase. Likewise, researchers at the University of Alberta have pointed that in the last decade, there have been 8 successive years of worsening fires globally. So all the indications are there if we look at what's happening in Europe around the heat waves that they experience, the fires that's been experienced in the US at the moment. The science and the reality is pointing it to us. We're anticipating a worsening fire season. In fact, if we take the UN statistics, we attend 2,500 now on average a year. By 2030, we will be attending 3,000 fires in South Africa. And then, of course, also within our own environment, we have seen a growing incidence of disaster fires, disasters in terms of the extent to which they burn, the number of days they burn, as well as the threat to property and lives. And that started off, with the Harrismith fires in 2016, the Knysna fires in 2017, Overstrand fires 2018, and when it spreads now to our grasslands in Free State in 2019, and we've seen similar fires in the Kleinmond in the 2021 period, in the start of this year. So we are starting to see telltale signs that the fire environment is changing for the worse. And much of it has to be put at the door of climate change. Obviously, we've seen the other side of the impact also in terms of floods that we've had in Durban. And globally, that's also been happening now. In Italy, they're experiencing floods. So already in Europe, they're gearing up. So the European Union has just made a decision. They're buying 10 new aircraft to bomb and another 3 helicopters to deal with the fire so they can share the resources on a European basis. We have a private company that's invested some 350 million in our aerial capacity. But I think, the wake-up signs are there that we need to actually prepare ourselves for a worsening situation.
All right, Mr. Abrahams, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave our conversation there.